Although there are undoubtedly many problems with humanity and horrible things happen to people occasionally, I still think that we should do everything in our power to ensure that we have a bright future that maximizes people's pleasure. There was absolutely nothing that anyone could conceive of to increase the chances of success when we debuted. Despite our best efforts, neither NASA nor we were able to come up with any more ideas to increase the likelihood of success. Therefore, that was the best we could do. Consequently, we launched without delay. Even though I'm not religious, I still got down on my knees and prayed for that mission, first when the launch went well, and then when they came back to Earth or home. It was a huge comfort, and I believe that the next asteroid flights were far more fun as we settled in and tested the systems, because you really have to make sure everything works. In fact, I found the Inspiration aim to be really motivating. In fact, the Inspiration 4 mission is excellent, and I would recommend that anyone view the Inspiration documentary on Netflix. In fact, that motivated me. With that one, I felt like I could actually enjoy the mission rather than constantly being under a lot of stress. For those who are unaware, this is the first time an entirely civilian crew has traveled into space and into orbit. It was, I believe, the highest orbit in perhaps 30 or 40 years. The Hubble servicing mission was the only one higher, and Apollo in 1972 would have been the one before that. It was quite crazy. It's cool then. It's good. As a species, I believe we want to keep improving and moving forward. If Apollo was the pinnacle of humanity, and it was the furthest we ever went, I believe it would be awful, very tragic. And the fact that we haven't returned to the moon 49 years after the last mission, nearly 50 years, is worrisome. In my opinion, we also need to return to the moon and establish a science base there. If we had a legitimate science base on the moon, I believe we could discover a lot about the nature of the cosmos. Numerous locations around the world, including Antarctica, are home to our scientific base. The next great step, in my opinion, is a serious black moon base. After that, we should send humans to Mars and establish a spacefaring civilization. I'm actually SpaceX's chief engineer, so I suppose some people are aware of it during the actual launches, but many aren't. I have therefore approved almost all of the design choices. It's essentially my fault if something goes wrong with that car, you know. I'm just thinking about everything that could go wrong and everything that could be better. For example, when I see the rocket. The Dragon spaceship is no different. "Oh, this is a rocket or spacecraft, and this looks really cool," will be the comments made by others. However, I have a printout that says, "These are the problems and the risks." I noticed that. Actually, it's not the engine design that takes up the most of my time, but rather the production of engines. Prototypes are easy, but manufacturing is difficult, as I have often stated. Our rocket engine is the most sophisticated one ever created. The RD-170, or dual Russian engine, is, in my opinion, currently the greatest rocket engine ever. Even yet, I believe an engine should only be considered if it has successfully launched an object into orbit. Although our engine hasn't yet sent anything into orbit, it is the first to outperform the Russian RD engines, which were a fantastic design. Numerous parts and special materials are involved. Therefore, in order to make this engine operate, we had to create a number of alloys that didn't already exist. It has to do with materials. The system contains numerous feedback loops in a full-flow staged combustion. In essence, heated gas and propellant are flowing simultaneously to numerous locations throughout the engine, and they all have a recursive effect on one another. Therefore, if you make a change here, it will have a recursive effect there, changing something there. It's really challenging to manage. This has never been made before for a reason. The staged combustion full-flow system has the maximum theoretical efficiency, which is why we are using it. Everything must be at its peak in order to create a totally reusable rocket, which is essentially the holy grail of orbital rocketry. It must have the best heat shield, engine, airframe, avionics, and highly light and intelligent control systems. You must reduce your body weight in every way you can. For instance, in order to reduce the weight of the landing legs, we will use a tower to collect them rather than attaching them to the ship and booster. However, our highly skilled crew is working around the clock to make it happen. As I mentioned before, having a fully and quickly reusable orbital rocket is essential to bringing about a revolution in spaceflight and making humans a spacefaring civilization. No orbiting rocket has ever been completely reusable. Never. And in rocketry, this has always been the ultimate goal. Due to the difficulty of the problem, numerous intelligent people, very intelligent people, have attempted to solve it in the past, but have failed. I'm not the type to quit. In addition to replacing labor, TeslaBot must figure out how to communicate with people and possibly find a role in the home as a friend or helper. I believe there are countless options. Making a practical humanoid robot that can interact with the outside world and assist in a variety of ways is a really beneficial thing that we can achieve for the planet, even though it obviously falls outside of Tesla's primary goal direction of accelerating sustainable energy. Therefore, in factories, and actually I believe that if you look ahead many years, employment will become optional. Many jobs are ones that people wouldn't perform if they weren't compensated for them. Like, it's not always enjoyable. If you spend your entire day doing dishes, you may be asking yourself, hey, even if you enjoy doing it, do you really want to do it for 8 hours every day? Most likely not. Then there is hazardous labor. Basically, the areas where humanoid robots would initially be most useful are those that are hazardous, dull, or have the potential for repetitive stress injuries. Thus, our goal is for humanoid robots to perform tasks that people do not choose to perform. I haven't given the Tesla bot, or its codename, Optimus, any serious consideration about the future. It's not like a gigantic transformer robot, which is why I name it Optimus Supreme. However, its objective is to serve as a general-purpose assistance robot. In essence, the projects that Tesla is working on have the potential to be hazardous. The number of interventions per million miles has been sharply declining. The likelihood of an accident on FSD is lower than that of the typical person, and then much lower than that of the average person, and it appears that this trend will continue next year. Therefore, it seems very likely that we will arrive there the following year. After that, there will be the situation where we have to convince regulators of this. Additionally, we want a standard that goes beyond simply being comparable to. The length and meaning are still the same, but the grammar is now correct. If you require any additional refinements, please let me know. Is it a headwind? Yes. Yes, without a doubt. Is cannibalization occurring? However, I believe it just boils down to the fact that they manufacture the best product available. That's a brand that, in my opinion, will endure all that clamor when it comes to their vehicles, specifically Tesla, and their upcoming autonomous technology. Additionally, I believe they will eventually continue to increase their market share in China. And even though there are certain brand-related problems in the United States, I believe that 90% of the future lies in autonomous and robotics. Therefore, I believe that in terms of where the wider innovation is heading, the bark will be far worse than the bite, regardless of these short-term concerns. For Tesla, I think the best is still to come, not in the past. Let's start with the obvious. Haters always hate. They're actually going to seize on something that would ultimately hurt Tesla, I believe it to be contained when I look at the final data. And look, will this be a case of brand degradation? Some might exist. However, Musk's front row seat in the Trump White House is important in terms of autonomy and a deregulatory atmosphere, and that's the key, which is why it will be remembered as the bet of all time. Go.